Version 4.1. Initializing upgrades. Accessing peace. Existing without violence, with the ability to calmly resolve conflict. Downloading love. An overwhelming, deep, positive affection towards others. Activating liberty. Living your life as you see fit without infringing on the lives of others.
Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism, and we're going to talk about happiness. I'm sure if you've ever seen the movie Waterboy, you're familiar with the line, "Can anybody tell me where happiness comes from?" Yes, sir, you, sir. Mama says that happiness comes from special rays of sunshine that come down when you're feeling blue. Mama's wrong. No, Colonel Sanders, you're wrong. Mama's right. Well, happiness does not come down from special rays of sunshine that come down when you're feeling blue. But apparently, there's a study that says that happiness depends on health and friends, not money. This story, and I was going to talk about happiness anyway, and I've got an article from Archetypes, 4 Simple Actions that they say will instantly make you happier, but then I saw this story from the UK Guardian and figured since I'm planning on talking about happiness anyway, let me go ahead and throw this in here. The story begins, most human misery can be blamed on failed relationships, physical and mental illness, rather than money problems such as poverty, according to a landmark study by a team of researchers at the London School of Economics. And the date on this story is Sunday, December 11th, 2016, so this is, a newer study. The Guardian reports eliminating depression and anxiety would reduce misery by 20% compared to just 5% if policymakers, this according to the researchers, compared to just 5% if policymakers focused on eliminating poverty. Now, since they're talking about, policymakers focusing on eliminating poverty, and the vast majority of my listeners are in the United States, and believe me, I appreciate the non-Americans that listen, or rather the people that are not in the United States that listen to the show. But, since I originate in New Hampshire, which is, for the time being, part of the United States, I'm going to, focus a little bit on some U.S. stuff because that's what I know. Yes, the study does come from the UK, but again, I know American politics better than I know British politics. In the United States, for going on 60 years, it's been over 50 years so far, there's been the war on poverty. And if you look at the statistics, you see that poverty rates have not declined. They've fluctuated here and there. And yes, it might be lower now than it was, say, 5 years ago, but on average, since the war on poverty began, the poverty rate has not declined in any significant manner. And if I recall correctly, I think it's actually up a little bit. And again, when we're looking at percentages here, so the gross number of people in poverty is higher now than it was when the war on poverty began. So if policymakers focus on eliminating poverty, they're not going to eliminate poverty. If anything, they'll create more of it. There was actually something that I was reading a few days ago about how there were researchers that did something to where they looked at what people make in various locations and how much welfare they can qualify at various pay rates. And they noticed that there was what they called the welfare cliff, to where if somebody got a pay raise from $15 per hour to $18 per hour, they would then lose out on all of these benefits, and they would actually wind up seeing a $20,000 per year reduction in the total compensation that they receive in a year. And again, that's assuming that the person met a certain demographic of, single parent with 2 children. But it's interesting to look at these numbers to see that, there's these programs that are intended to help people. And then you find out that they stifle people becoming more productive, people moving up the socioeconomic ladder because, well, if I take this pay raise, then I stop getting this and that and this other assistance. And it's actually going to wind up harming me. And again, that's how you wind up with a war on poverty that creates more poverty. But I digress and continue with the article about happiness. Lord Richard Laird, who led the report, said on average people have become no happier in the last 50 years, despite average incomes more than doubling. The economist and former advisor to Tony Blair and Gordon Brown said the study, called Origins of Happiness, showed that measuring people's satisfaction with their lives should be a priority of every government. I disagree. I don't think that it should be the priority of any government entity to, do anything, let alone, make it a priority for you to be happy. Now, I would say that happiness, much like breathing and eating, is a fundamental right. Now, what do I mean by fundamental right? What I mean by that is no one has a legitimate right to prevent you from doing the thing. It doesn't matter, fill in the blank. As long as you are not harming another person or causing unjust harm, more specifically to another person, you have a right to do that. And you have a right to be happy. Now, there are some people that they like to use the word right to mean someone must provide this to me. But it really, when you look at it, those people are being hypocritical because there are some things that they will recognize as a right, but then say, well, nobody has to provide that to you. People say, I have a right to an education, so therefore pay for me to go to school. Oh, you have a right to bear arms, but go buy your own gun. Well, if both of those are rights, then neither one should be paid for by anyone else, but neither can be hindered. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Stay tuned.
It is the year 91,001 BCE. Witness humanity's origins in Hyperchronius, a classic role-playing game for Windows PCs with a story like no other game before. A liberty-oriented experience that is not to be missed. Go to zog.ninja to get your copy of Hyperchronius today. Use the code FPP to get $1 off. Hyperchronius, zog.ninja, code FPP.
You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and Numery supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $3 per month through Patreon and get perks like ad-free versions of FPP Radio News and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. That's fans.fppradio.com.
Hi, I'm Nick Hazelton from the Anarcho-Yakutalism podcast, and you're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Getting back into the article about happiness. The researchers at the London School of Economics analyzed data from 4 countries, including the U.S. and Germany. I'm guessing one of the other countries was the United Kingdom, seeing that the study came out of London and they do not mention the 4th country, or at least not in the article. They say extra spending on reducing mental illness would be self-financed, according to the researchers, because it would be recovered by the government through higher employment and increased tax receipts, together with a reduction in NHS, that's the British National Health System, or National Health Service, and a reduction in NHS cost with fewer GP visits. I'm not sure what GP means, probably general physician, and they also say would also have fewer hospital A and E admissions, and I believe A and E is what they refer to as the ER over there in the UK. Lord Laird, who was involved in this study, says tackling depression and anxiety would be 4 times as effective as tackling poverty. It would pay for itself. Now, here's my issue with all of this, is they are wanting to centrally plan things. And I have a major issue when people want to centrally plan things, because what that means is if you don't want to go along with whatever the plan is, then bad things can happen to you. And that happens in the United States. And, well, it happens everywhere in the world right now, to where if you don't want to pay for whatever it is, then things will happen. You don't want to pay for the government-run school, so therefore you don't pay part or all of your property tax. After a number of years, the city will come kick you out of your house and take your home. You don't want to pay income taxes? You know, there are some people that have successfully not paid for long periods of time. There have been other people that wind up going to jail for that. You buy gasoline and you don't want to pay the fuel tax? Well, the cashier at the Exxon station or the Mobil station or the T-Bird or wherever you go buy your gas, they're not going to have any way to deduct that off. Go to the grocery store. And yes, I realize there are some states where groceries aren't taxed. So that might be a bad example, but, go to Subway, not the, train choo-choo Subway, the restaurant Subway. Get your $5 footlong. And no, they didn't pay me to say that, but you go in, you get your $5 footlong, and then they'd say it's $5.46 or whatever after tax. You tell them, no, your sign says $5 for a footlong. I'm only going to give you $5. The cashier's not going to have any kind of way of saying, no, I can't not charge you this tax. So, yes, there are some taxes you can avoid, other taxes you can't, but just try, making a stink and telling them, I am not leaving until you deduct this tax off of my $5 footlong, and pretty soon the policeman's going to show up and say you're trespassing. You don't pay your vehicle registration that they claim that you owe. Whether you believe that you owe it or not, that's another question. But, at some point, there will be violence. And some people are going to say, well, it's not going to be violent as long as you comply with what the police say. Okay, yeah, and it's not going to be violent as long as you do exactly what the mugger says when he sticks a gun in your face in Central Park and tells you to hand over all the money. The threat of violence is still there. And some people will say, but they do good things with the money. They steal my money and they give it to homeless people. They steal my money and they educate children. They steal my money and they give it to grandma. And I really like grandma. Well, you know what? If you really like grandma, give grandma your own damn money. You don't need somebody to steal your money to be able to feed grandma. It doesn't matter what good thing happens with stolen money. It is still stolen money. And I've had this conversation way too many times with people, the same people, and they still don't understand it because they say, well, good things happen with the stolen money, so therefore it's not stolen. Doesn't matter. If the guy with a gun in Central Park that sticks it in your face and says, hand over your wallet, then says, oh, and by the way, I'm going to go give this to the homeless shelter, you would not then say, oh, I wasn't mugged in Central Park. You would still be mugged in Central Park. I continue with the article. The report suggests the arguments put forward by Laird over several decades that or rather the report supports the arguments put forward by Laird over several decades that social and psychological factors are more important to the well-being of individuals than income levels. And this is what I find to be the most fascinating. Not their suggestions of we need to steal money from people to pay for this, but the fact that who you surround yourself with and what you do and how you treat yourself has a lot more to do with whether you are happy than how much money you have. I've got a friend that for several years intentionally was a hobo. And, she had some bad experiences, but she wrote a book about it. I've published the book for her, How to Be a Hobo. And she seems as though she was incredibly happy during that time because she had a good mindset and she was surrounding herself with decent people. And she said some of the generosity that was bestowed upon her was just fascinating, to where people would come up and, just stay right here. I'm going to bring you some, clothes or food or whatever. And one of the stories that she shares, she was in this phase called Gearless and Fearless, to where the only thing that she had was, I think she kept a multi-tool and whatever clothes she was wearing, and she had her dog. And she was sitting outside of a restaurant, and some older lady came by and said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I'm waiting on food." And she was like, "No, what are you doing on the streets? Stay here." And she went and just brought back a bunch of stuff. And Brooke said it took her 4 trips to take it across the street to the pawn shop to get rid of it because she didn't want the stuff. But she was just so happy that people were generous. There's more. Stay tuned.
You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and numerous supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $1 per month through Patreon and get perks like ad-free versions of FPP Radio News and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. That's fans.fppradio.com.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up in any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com. That's getcell411.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. There's more to the article from the UK Guardian, but I'm going to change gears here and jump away from this article. And before I go to the article from Archetypes, I want to make sure that I tell you about a way that you can keep your money in the free economy. That is assuming that you use Bitcoin as an alternative in this fiat-centric world. Spend a bit. You need to bookmark this site, spendabit.fppradio.com. Spendabit is the search engine for things you can buy with Bitcoin. They aggregate millions of products from thousands of Bitcoin-enabled merchants, and they allow you to keep your money in the free economy. Use my affiliate link, spendabit.fppradio.com, and if you're a Bitcoin-accepting merchant like I am, ask about their merchant suite to reach even more customers. That's spendabit.fppradio.com. spendabit.fppradio.com. So you want to be happy, right? Everybody does. Happiness is like a code that everybody wants to crack. Even when you've garnered so much wealth and fame, you still want to be happy. And as we learned from delving into a report on a study, happiness And I've heard this throughout my life. Wealth does not buy happiness. And then people always say, yeah, but I'd rather be, crying in a Ferrari than a beat up Pinto. So, to a degree, right? But I digress and continue. Happiness should not be an elusive item. If you really want to be happy, why wait? Why should it be dependent on an if? You don't have to wait until later to be happy. You can embrace it now by conditioning your mind and taking certain actions that will help you appreciate such state. The truth is that we all have different ideas and explanations to what happiness is, yet being happy is a choice, and only you can make that conscious decision to be happy. Here are 4 simple actions that you should start taking to attain more happiness. And what do you know? Surprise, surprise! They're saying basically the same thing that this study released yesterday says. Spend time with those you care about. If you want to improve your happiness, you have to understand why it is necessary to spend social time with those you care about. Even when you're an introvert, staying in touch with family and friends will instantly improve your wellness and make you happier. While it's great to increase your income and work to make more money, you will see happiness soar when you can increase the strength of your social relationships. So you may just need to reach out to a friend and let them know how special they are in your life, or rekindle a relationship with a long-lost friend. Number 2 on the list. Again, this is connected with number 1, connected to exactly what the study says. Volunteer and show kindness. Now, yes, I know the study did not say that, but it did say that it depends on health and friends. And, well, if you're healthy enough to volunteer, then it shows, some level of humanity and compassion for your fellow man. And, of course, it will wind up making you happier. And, well, one thing before I read the little blurb that they have, one thing that I will say is that people who volunteer for, that actual reason of having compassion for other human beings tend to wind up, being a little more happier than the people who only volunteer for accolades. The people that donate money anonymously tend to be happier, in my opinion, and, from my experience, tend to be happier than the people who only do it to wind up getting praise. Because the people that do it to get praise, after a while, people are like, okay, well, you gave a bunch of money that one time. Well, what are you going to do now? Huh? Well, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do now? But if you, are able to give small amounts to charity, a lot of times that is more meaningful to people, especially if you don't have a lot to begin with. And there have been studies that show, and I know I'm going off on a tangent because that's what the hell I do, and it's my radio show. But there have been studies that show that people in lower income brackets actually wind up giving more of their per capita income than people that tend to be a lot wealthier. And now, yes, there are exceptions to that, but we're talking about averages here. And there are other studies that show that various regions of the country wind up giving more money than others. So people from the South, on average, wind up donating more to charity than people in the Northeast, and more than people on the West Coast. But I digress and continue. They say whether you're expending your energy, time, or resources on others, you will not only be enriching their lives, you will also be boosting your own happiness. When you're feeling down, helping others can be a quick way to pick yourself back up. This action proves more effective when you perform a random act of kindness when it was not expected from you. So what they're saying here is don't plan your random acts of kindness, just do them. And yes, I know, I changed one word from the Nike slogan, "Come at me, bro," it ain't going to happen. And not that I'm really looking for a lawsuit from Nike, but, you know, people get lawsuit happy over the strangest little thing. A couple more ways to instantly become happier. Stay tuned. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Why do they hate us? Is libertarianism compatible with Islam? Davi Barker answers these questions and more in Voluntary Islam and Other Essays. He advances the voluntarist cause with analysis of the confluence of values between Islam and libertarianism, as well as contemporary movements from the Tea Party to the Arab Spring. Voluntary Islam by Davi Barker is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, Spendabit, and Amazon at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry. Online at fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. Just want to remind you, Wednesday, that's 2 days from now, Wednesday is the Ask Me Anything. Send your questions to ama@fppradio.com. Friday is episode number 400, and I've got something very special planned. I've been working on this for several days, and I should wind up having everything put together by tomorrow for the Friday show because, yes, I'm planning it that far in advance. Other people, Brian Sovereign did an amazing episode a couple of weeks ago where it took him like a week to do the episode. I'm not going that crazy with it, but look forward to the episode on Friday, episode 400. Back now, and yes, episode 400 is going to make me happy when I finally release it, and hopefully it makes you happy as well. So we can add that to this list of simple things to make you instantly happier, right? So item number 5 is listen to episode 400 of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Item number 1 here, they say spend time with those you care about, volunteer and show kindness, learn something new. It could be learning how to ride a bicycle or learning how to play a guitar. And hopefully if you're old enough to be listening to this show, although there's no age restriction on this show, so, you know, like you could be 5 and have learned to use the internet. I don't know. But if you're listening to this show, hopefully you already know how to ride a bicycle. But if you don't, yeah, go learn how to ride a bike. Pick up a guitar, learn how to play that. Just learn something new. Because when you try to learn new things, your well-being improves. You also derive that feeling of accomplishment and boosted confidence. People who try new things can take charge of their own development, so break out of your usual routine and mix things up a bit. Doing this takes you away from the regular and keeps you curious and engaged. And number 4 on the list, practice gratitude. And this goes, I would say, somewhat hand in hand with number 2 about volunteering and showing kindness, but it's slightly different, right? So showing kindness is helping somebody else. Showing gratitude is appreciating when people help you. They say appreciate those things that you have. It's a simple strategy that works. When you practice gratitude, you have an improved outlook on life and increase your happiness. Appreciation makes you realize there is more to life than those things we keep striving for. You can stop worrying about the future and dwelling on the past when you practice gratitude. There are many ways you can show gratitude. There's more. As always, the link will be in the show notes. Be back Wednesday.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copy Heart. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News, and also get a copy of the monthly newspaper FPP News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.